Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Vito X Dino. I'm Vito Delsante. That's Dean Haspiel.
Hello, everybody.
What are we talking about this week, Dean? There's so much to get to, I'm sure. I know that one thing I want to get to at some point during the show is something we kind of alluded to last week, something that kind of goes back to our Marty Keene discussion, but let's hold off on that for a little bit. Uh, you were just about to say something.
Well, I want to acknowledge it's our Sweet 16.
That's right.
This is our 16th episode of Vito X Dino,
Dino.
or Vino, actually. Um, and I can't believe we made it this far already, and we still have things to talk about. What the hell?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know that we ever put any kind of time limit on. I think at one point we were going to do 30-minute shows, when I think our first show was about 30 to 45 minutes. And then something happened in the second show and we just started going.
Hmm.
Again, and we say it all the time, or at least I said it at least four times last week. The show was always predicated and kind of based on our telephone conversations. So we always knew that they would go long at some point, but last week
Right.
we almost went 2 hours with Ray Anthony Height. So I mean, that says something. We apparently do have stuff to say about any minutia or,
Well,
or yeah,
especially when we invite people to the conversation, it becomes three of us, you
right,
know?
right,
And on the one hand, the description or the premise of our show, as it were, um, it would almost turn people off because you'd be like, wait, I'm just gonna listen to Dean and Vito talk how they would talk to each other while you drive home from work or
right.
to work and whatever the hell I'm doing, and and who should care about our opinions? But then don't listen. It's fine. It's
Yeah, yeah.
okay. We're
I,
gonna do this anyway, no
I
matter
was
who's
gonna
listening.
I was gonna say we will kind of just do this anyway as almost. I mean, I don't want to say it's our weekly conversation anyway, because it's not. There are things that we talk about on the phone that are more, I don't want to say private, but they're more like developmental, or they're more like, oh, did you see this movie? And I mean, some of that is fodder for the show, and some of that is
Right.
just like, it's like calling your parents every week or something, or, being in touch with a relative. You just catch up. And I don't think this is necessarily that, but it does have that kind of familiar kind of, and like you said, we're probably going to like we'll do this show into an echo chamber. We don't care. Like,
Right.
like,
And what it has done for me though is, even though I'm sure you have people you text or talk to about today's news or whatever, and for me it's like I've started to like, oh, you know what? Like you and I will send each other a topic via email, right? And then rather than talk about it that day or that moment, some of these we can save for later, give
right,
it some context and then talk about it.
yeah,
And so that's been an interesting like new ritual for me, is to be able to identify something in the last 6 days since I last we did this,
mhm,
and then hold off on it versus kind of knee-jerk reacting and then it disappears. And in this way, I get to talk to you. We're like-minded, but we're also have different points of views,
yeah,
and when we have a third person in, is it throws it off kilter in a really interesting way.
right.
So.
It's interesting because I think I mentioned it a couple of episodes ago that we don't really disagree on a lot of things,
Mhm,
but yet we still have a lot to say about them
mhm,
from different points of view. Like,
mhm,
even though the points of view are similar, or we're agreeing to agree, if that makes sense.
mhm.
Uh, but yeah, we don't really fight very often about things.
We
Um,
don't, and I know that might make it more interesting for certain people, but we have enough of that already, in the world.
True.
So
Or on
I think it's
Facebook.
a little more refreshing to, kind of talk about certain things, but from, lack of a better term description, like from Pittsburgh to Brooklyn points of views, whatever the hell
Right.
that means.
Right.
So speaking of, I mean, I was not prepared for the Fantastic Four trailer today
How
that
about
dropped.
that?
You know,
Here's another episode, another instance of Dean sending me an email, And I don't, it's funny when I have a day off from work, like today, I don't usually spend it. I don't spend it on Facebook as much uh, because I don't feel like I'm disconnected. I feel like I'm disconnected on purpose, not as a result of being at work or something like that. So I didn't know that it had. I didn't know that it was. They even planned to put it out, this
Right.
week. And then I got an email from Dean saying, like, I think I'm crying, or I forget how you put it.
I got
But
very emotional. I think I
that's
wrote
what it was. Yeah,
watching it, and I can explain that. But and then you wrote something about why they drop it on a Thursday, and I said
yeah,
it's the fourth day of the week, son.
yeah.
Like
How I missed that part of it is kind of ridiculous. But I think the I what I want to try to do, if I can get it, is I'm going to try to play it uh, on the podcast. Um, I'm just trying to find the link from your email because
well, it's about 2.5, 3 minutes long, so it may not be, not that we're trying to entertain and be so worried about listeners, but I mean, part of the trailer is what we've seen before that was released, what, a couple months ago or a
yeah,
month ago
I
or
would
whatever
say
it was.
January. Yeah,
And then this one, and it's not a spoiler because it's an advertisement, so we're not spoiling an ad, okay?
right.
But they showed the Silver Surfer, who is Shalabel, the Silver Surfer. Oh, sorry, Norin Rad's wife is
Yes,
playing Silver Surfer, but we kind of knew that already. And you know, if I had to have one little like I don't know about that for me, I love the entire trailer. There's a lot more to talk about it, but I just mentioned Shalabel, and the thing is, it looks like she has pupils, and it was something I thought always cool about the Silver Surfer's eyes just being like cosmic white, you know.
right, right.
Um, but maybe they kept the pupils because it's harder to express, without
Possibly,
pupils.
possibly. I think it's funny. Like once I saw it, it was right after I watched it, and I had sent you a couple of emails or something. I instinctively, well, there it is. It's playing. Hold on.
Folks, we all know the
Sorry,
story.
I meant to pause that. But once it like I saw it, I kind of instinctively went to Facebook, and then I just started seeing people shitting on it. Like for like,
Oh, really? I have better friends than you, I think, on
oh, of
Facebook.
course, of course. I was like, who would argue that? Mike Houston alone is better than
That
99% of my friends.
that's true. Well, sorry about that, but
No,
again, that's just me being nitpicky, and it's not even nitpicky. It's just I noticed it was a choice, but the entire trailer like really built up a really good spirit for what the movie appears to be like, which is
right.
very good natured, lighthearted in some ways. Um, in the previous trailer, they played up a little bit that the thing is sad, but
Mhm.
in this one,
He smiles.
he smiles and he's happy,
Yeah,
and everyone loves the Fantastic Four. Now, of course, you're going to go back and forth. I know how this works. They'll probably be loved and then hated,
right.
or whatever's going to happen in the movie. Um, oh, you bringing it up right now?
Yeah, let's take a look at it. Because
Okay.
the thing that I'm really interested in is where you like you had mentioned that you got emotional, and I'm very interested in seeing where you got emotional.
Oh, I can tell you right now, even though you want to maybe play it, but
Astronauts head up into space and come
I
back.
can't see it. I just see you, Vito.
This car,
Oh, there we go.
our city, our planet, owe a debt to these intrepid souls. And while we can never repay them, we can certainly celebrate.
Thank you, Fantastic Four.
Shades of the end of the Avengers.
The Fantastic Four.
So because it's hard to hear the sound, Vito, I don't know if you might be able to hear it, but on my end, we can't really hear it,
Okay.
unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, do you want to describe what's happening, or what are you feeling?
Uh, I'm gonna let it play out a little bit and see. Hopefully, this works. I've never actually tried to play a YouTube video on here. You got the thing making dinner. Johnny grabs cereal,
You're
which is
late.
funny.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean? You're late for dinner.
Yes, we are.
You late? I just said that. Are you pregnant? What?
So it's revealed here that Sue Storm is pregnant.
Right.
And you are going to be the best dad. Just kidding. You are out of your depth. We are going to be the best uncles ever.
That's
We
great.
can do this. Things go to change.
Oh, it's this July. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Not too far away.
So we get our first Silver Surfer moment.
And I'm not, this is where all the nitpicks are coming. I don't, how do I say this without, not that I'm trying to be diplomatic, but I don't care either way. I do like Norrin Rad's version more just because it's what I'm used to. Not that this Shalabal is a bad thing or something that's going to keep me from the movie. It's just there's something very, it might just be like, it might get better looking when the movie comes out. It just looks a little hasty for some reason.
You mean the design or whatever,
The
the
effects,
animation, the
yeah.
effects? I listen. I'm okay. There's so much male energy in
Sure.
the Fantastic Four, and clearly, and it's something that would happen in the comics. But clearly, Sue Storm or Sue Richards, when she got married, eventually became the anchor of the team in a lot of ways.
Right.
So and she's definitely that in this as
Absolutely.
well, in this trailer, and I think that's really cool. But there's only like right now one female. Then there'll be a female Silver Surfer, and I think that could be really interesting tension. That and Sue Storm is pregnant.
Yeah, that's a big deal in comics.
Can I posit a theory?
Yeah, please.
So, what does that mean? That means Franklin Richards will get born at some point, maybe even in this movie. Who knows? Like how much time passes.
Right.
So, do you think that Franklin Storm might be the connective tissue, the thing that gets them into the Fantastic Four, into the MCU proper?
I think that the two things have to happen for that. Number one, he's probably going to be about a year whenever, because the initial footage, she was already pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And the popular thinking, in at least a couple of places that I saw Easter egg breakdowns and stuff, was that the crux of the movie takes place a year after the birth of Franklin. So that would make it at about a year, if a little bit less. Here's the thing. As a mutant, as a child of two metahumans, it's possible that his mental acumen is a little bit different, that he might pick up on things a little earlier than most one-year-olds would. Which is well within the context of the source material, I would say. So would that make Franklin the bridge between the MCU proper and this kind of what they've already said is an alternate universe, Marvel universe? I think that's possible. I think that is absolutely within the realm of possibility.
Let me ask you two things. One is Franklin Richards is not a mutant.
He technically is, only because he was born with powers. Whereas in the Marvel universe, anybody that is like Spider-Man is on the verge of being a mutant. Why is my phone going off like crazy right now?
Wait, why would Spider-Man be a mutant? He got irradiated by a spider or whatever.
No, yes, but he was
that was an accident.
It was an accident. He was already older when it happened, but more importantly, the reason why he would be a mutant is because it did do it mutated his DNA.
Oh yeah, but there's a different. So what I'm trying to say is there's being mutated, right? Like the Hulk, gamma rays, and you can say the Fantastic Four were mutated by cosmic rays, right?
Sure.
So what I'm suggesting though, or what I'm asking is, like did I don't think Franklin Richards got his powers when he was 12, or hit puberty. I think he always, as a baby, even expressed powers that were kind of scary and so it doesn't make him a mutant like Wolverine or the X-Men, any of the X-Men or anything like that. The other thing I was thinking though was this, like, why do we even need the Fantastic Four to be part of what's it called, 616 or something? Six, what is it? 616?
I don't
The
know
Marvel.
anymore. They keep changing it,
Well,
but
it's a number
yeah,
that the MCU that we've been watching, and then there are all the multiverses that have their numbers. So the one we're watching, I think, or been witness to in the cinematic universe is I think 616. So I think this FF movie is not 616,
correct.
but everyone's thinking, well, how will it get into 616? And I started thinking, why does it even need to be in 616? Because what might be really cool is to see their version of a Spider-Man, their version of a Hulk and a Thor and an Iron Man.
I don't think that's necessarily the plan. I think what's happening is do again, this is all internet speculation. I
Right,
wouldn't call it spoilers. It's just somebody's opinion. The idea that I've heard being bandied about is that Doomsday will be an incursion event similar to how we saw in the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
right,
And the incursion event will be something that takes place over the course of the movie Doomsday, and then Secret Wars it will happen, and then out of Secret Wars will be the definitive Marvel Cinematic Universe proper,
right,
where you might
right.
get a recasting of Captain America, you might get a new Wolverine. Like it's basically their way of reset. It's crazy to think of it like this, but it's basically their way of resetting their universe to kind of compensate for the fact that people are aging.
Or actors are aging too.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
which is never going to be a concern with the comic, but they do it in
right,
comics all the time anyway. So
right, right.
I'm
So
gonna let
I don't know if it's necessary to, because that those movies are going to be insane because they've already announced a lot of the old X-Men actors are going to be in it, and like, oh my God, it's almost too much, man. Like you really have to be a super fan of all this stuff.
and I think the thing is the thing is we're looking at what was it 12 years later now, 13 years later from the first Avengers movie, maybe more.
Mm,
And it built up to Endgame or Infinity War and Endgame, and
hmm.
the battle scene in Endgame was the climax. So you can't, like, you didn't end it there. You could have, but you didn't.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so now it's like, well, how do we build? And so you have to have this gangbang of people on screen. And the only way you can, in my estimation, the only way you can justify that is, all right, well, now since we have Spider-Man under our house, sort of, we're working with Sony with that. We do have the Fantastic Four back and we have the X-Men back. Might as well start feeding that into the machine now. Um, I can't speak to whether or not I think it's a good idea or not. As somebody that's spent, let's see, I'll be 52 in June. I've spent maybe 46, 47 years with these Marvel characters, I
Hmm.
that's a long time. I don't I'm certainly aware of the fatigue that comes with this stuff. Thankfully, Marvel's been slowing down a considerable amount. Holy shit, if you haven't seen Daredevil, God forgive you, you're missing something. But
Oh, did you watch the finale?
oh
All right,
yeah,
let's talk about that too because
yeah.
we'll
I
talk
want
about
to.
that.
I'm going to let this play out, and
Okay.
and again, so where exactly are you getting emotion? Like,
It was at the end. It was at the end. It was at the end. I mean,
because
we there's all this stuff going on,
right,
and they acknowledge and show Galactus. There's
Galactus.
Galactus right now. There's that really nifty Fantastic Four car, Fantastic car, and then you
I
know,
just noticed. I really don't want to stretch this out, mind you, but in this shot of the Silver Surfer, right about here, that's Galactus's ship behind her. I just noticed that.
I mean, I
Like,
can't
look at how
really.
Kirby-ish it is in the design, you know? Like,
I'm sure it is. I mean, again, you can look at every
oh,
frame, right?
yeah.
And distill it. I didn't go that far because
Again,
I still want it to be like a surprise. I love this moment where the thing is tugging the boat with the
yeah,
chain with the
yeah. I
anchor.
thought that was really cool.
Oh my God. This is the part right here. When the Human Torch lit up from the theater and went up in the sky, and then we had the thing punching through the columns, and we had Mr. Fantastic stretching,
For the
and then
first
Invisible
time
Girl,
in any of the production,
and we're finally seeing a version of it, and it looks great.
yeah,
And Sue Storm using her powers, where it's like refracted light, and then we see Galactus walking through the streets,
are stupid.
and it was like there was something else about the music at that moment too that was
Yeah, the
very
crescendo of it.
uplifting, and I
Honest to,
just started crying.
honest to God, I say this with nothing but affection for all of it, but seeing Galactus's feet walking on the streets of New York is absolutely stupid.
No, it's the best thing ever.
It is, but the idea of it is just like, what are we doing?
No, but it's like Godzilla versus Kong
Absolutely,
and everything
absolutely,
else, man. It's
yeah.
Transformers. It's so much. And
Oh, you're right.
I mean, I hope they humanize him. I hope he's the bad guy, or he needs to eat. And I hope that they play into that,
Yeah,
because he can't just be, I mean, I don't think they would. He can't just be a bad guy, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And he's not going to be the only bad guy in the movie, because I'm sure they're going to do a little pastiche of,
John Malkovich, good money is that he's playing the Red Ghost, which means we'll see three super intelligent monkeys.
right? And then I think there's going to be a mole man.
Yeah, I think so
Um,
too. I think Paul Walter Hauser's playing Mole Man.
I mean, he could totally be mole man, right? So, I don't know. I just was like, listen, I didn't love the first two versions of the Fantastic Four movie. Uh, not barring the Roger Corman one, which was also, they did a lot with a little in the Roger Corman one. I'll say
Did
that
you ever see
much.
that? I've never seen it.
I saw it and I have it.
Oh, okay.
I've had it for years. Like it was as close as you could get to the Fantastic Four. Then the two movies came out where Michael Chiklis played the Thing, and I thought that wasn't not bad. It was a practical suit. It
Yeah.
was the right height, the right attitude. That was the Thing. That was a pretty good thing, you know. But then the other one was a disaster. Oh my
The
God,
Silver
with
Surfer
Miles
one?
Teller. The
Oh,
what?
the Miles Teller one. I thought you meant the Silver Surfer one, the second Tim
Well,
Story.
no. I consider those, that one era of
Mhm.
Fantastic Four, and then the Miles Teller one was that was just wrong, man.
Yeah,
It just
there's
sorry, you tried something, it didn't work. You know,
there's a it's funny that the best way to make these movies is to just stick to the source material, and weirdly, those other three movies, Roger Corman notwithstanding, um, kind of tried to take a little bit of the Ultimate Universe and tried to take a little bit of the Marvel Universe, tried to put something the Josh Trank one, which is the Miles Teller one, tried to infuse realism, and it's like you got to embrace the weird, you got to embrace the silly, and you got to embrace the fantastic. Pardon the pun.
right,
To
right,
make any of these movies, like to make Superman, which is I think what James Gunn does best, is he embraces the weirdness of it, and he embraces the fantastic elements of it as well, which is why I think Superman is going to be fantastic. Same thing with this one. I think it's Matt Shackman is the director. He, weirdly enough, how I know his name is that he directed multiple episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
huh.
which basically is a Fantastic Four. you
Oh,
know,
really? Oh,
like if
that's
you
I've
think
never
about
seen
it,
it.
like they're absolutely horrible people. They are they are it's very much a Seinfeld show. If you've never seen it, I think that's probably a very accurate description of it. It's just crass and very Philadelphia in a sense.
Right, right.
And but the thing is, there are four main people, and one of them is a blonde, and one of them is like a pseudo intellectual, and then there's Danny DeVito, who's almost like a mole man in every episode, or Herbie, take your pick. But and Matt Shackman directed a lot of those episodes, so he's got that dynamic. And he
Right,
knows how
right,
to direct that dynamic of four individual strong personalities. So
right, right.
I think I think he's got something that might have been missing from from the other directors, whether it be Josh Trank or Tim Story for the other two. Maybe not Roger Corman, because Roger Corman had an affinity for comics, from what I understand. So
And
um,
actually, did he direct? Did Roger Corman direct the Fantastic Four
I
movie?
don't know. I want to
I don't
say he
remember.
didn't, but I know he produced it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And with that lower budget, I mean, it's kind of incredible what they were able to pull off. So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
And the thing about this trailer that got me, not so much emotional, but got me to like kind of cheer in my seat was I mentioned it just a few minutes ago. Pedro Pascal has not stretched in any of the other promo material until now, and it's like, oh, finally, like I get to see that, and it looked good. Like it
it
didn't look.
looked good, man. It looked good. So I'm super excited.
I
The
kind of want
Fantastic
to
Four
see
is
it with you. Isn't that like only because
yeah.
the
I think I should watch it alone because I think I'll just be crying the whole time because I'll be like, not that they got it right. It's not about getting it right. Is that
uh,
they got an essence of,
sure,
you know,
yeah,
and so far, just from the trailers alone, and I hope that that will continue throughout, a feature-length film and
right,
whatever they decide to do with it, you know. So,
yeah, yeah.
it's very promising, and
That's a good word
it's my
for it.
favorite comic book. What?
That's a good word for it. It's very promising.
Oh, absolutely
Yeah, I
promising.
like that.
So, and then did you quickly want to talk about Daredevil?
I do because for the last two episodes, I was watching and I noticed a very curious reaction, physical reaction on my part. My anxiety jumped. Like just like I was just so tense the entire time. Like especially in the scene, quote unquote, where Kingpin kills uh, the police commissioner. I don't think that's much of a spoiler. I'm not. The spoiler is further into it, but in that moment, I thought that there was going to be like a cowboy moment where like heroes would come in, or like Daredevil, Punisher,
Or
whoever,
someone in that room would try to stop.
something, and nothing happened. And that's where like I was just like my tension just was building, and the my biggest complaint for this season was that all of those kind of interstitial shots of the city, where it was just like B-roll,
Hmm.
and I was just like, I don't need that. I just give me more story, But
Are
I
you talking about the person that's doing little video interviews
sort
with
of
people?
it's BB Urich, who is supposed to be Ben Urich's niece. She's got her own like kind of TikTok-ish YouTube kind of blog where she interviews people on the street, and she's got kind of a following, and she's got kind of the views, I guess, and to the point that it affects Kingpin Wilson Fisk so much that he's trying to suppress the information that's coming out, and so it's important to the city of New York, at least in this vicinity, meaning the show. So before they show those, and actually it started being it started just happening a lot, where it's just shots of the city, people walking by, people. One person pointed out garbage was piling up because the mayor wanted to go with a different, didn't want to work with the unions. He wanted to do a different type of garbage collection type of thing, or I can't remember the exact thing, but those little shots were just like kind of unnecessary to me because I know, but I get what they're doing. They're trying to build New York as a character in the show,
Right,
so to
right,
speak.
right. Well, then there was Red Hook, which was really, I mean, it's like literally out my window,
Yeah,
out here, right out this window is like that grain terminal that I put in the Red Hook years ago and other parts of Red Hook. And it's just cool to see it being used in the show. I didn't love the show.
hmm.
I didn't love it. Like I've seen a lot of people raving, and yes, there was a whole thing if you want to get into the nuts and bolts about how they'd done one version of the show, and then some of the actors are like, "This isn't good enough," so they went and reshot a lot of the show, and then you can feel that in the show,
I believe
as you're
COVID
watching it.
COVID was also a concern or a factor into a lot of the reshoots as well. Uh,
Sure,
but yeah,
but
I know what you mean.
but like I've watched so many superhero stories, okay,
And
and so many.
this goes back to what we were saying about the superhero fatigue
Yes,
of longtime fans, like as you and I are.
right.
So yeah, go ahead and
But I was gonna say, like, at some point, I'm like, I mean, I guess we can spoil a little bit. So here's spoilers, okay, guys? You can turn this off or jump ahead a little bit. But at one point, Matt Murdock saves Kingpin's life, right? Because he's conflicted. He's been conflicted the whole, he quit being Daredevil because he feels like he got his best friend killed because of it. And then he's like, what's the law? And maybe if we can just, what was Foggy hiding in a document that may come out later or not or whatever, because of Bullseye and all this stuff. And then I keep thinking toward the end of the show, I kept thinking, just everybody should just kill each other. Just it'll stop if they all just shot each other out, right? Like the end. Like kill Kingpin, kill Daredevil because he doesn't want to be Daredevil. Punisher isn't even being really Punisher anymore. He's just sitting in the room and he had long hair one episode, he got a haircut the other one. And then they do this thing, where they have a fight scene together, which, if you've read the Frank Miller comics or any Daredevil comics, that's a difficult kind of team up to do because the Punisher kills people and
right.
Daredevil's trying to not kill people
They're
like
on
most superheroes.
they're on the same side except for in their methods.
Exactly. So it's like Daredevil's in a room where Punisher is killing people and Daredevil's trying to not kill people, right? So that's a hard pill to swallow. Okay.
There's a really great scene within that scene where Punisher is about to kill one of the uh, task force members, and Daredevil jumps in front of him. And he goes, "No, we don't have to be like him." And just Punisher just discriminate. Oh, pop, just off
Right.
to the side. Oh, you mean like that guy?
Like that guy over there.
like it's
Right.
like the Three Stooges. Like, what are you
Right.
doing?
And then they're like beating people up to the point in real life they would just be dead the
Sure.
way they're hit and whatever. So it's I'm more conscious of it for some reason with this season more than ever. I don't know if it's necessarily a fatigue, but more like, you know what, guys, everybody, just kill each other. Go ahead, like, and then wipe it all out. And then you know who the creepiest character though the entire season was?
Oh, Gandolfini's kid.
Oh my God. Like purposely the way he's
Oh,
talking.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's definitely on purpose. There's a method behind that, and I don't know what it
Oh
is.
yeah.
Like I
Well,
know,
they're building him up to be the bad guy in season two. I think
yeah,
if there's going to be any kind of redemption for Kingpin, it'll be that he appointed this guy a little who's too big for his britches.
right.
Like he might be worse than Kingpin at some point, right?
Some
So,
point, yeah.
and then there's the wife, and that story was kind of really interesting. I don't necessarily buy that they're back together, but maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know. There was just a lot to think, and I really, but the show I want to see is what's the character's name? She's the female lawyer of Foggy.
Oh,
Um,
I wanted to call her Madison, but it was the name of a case. Um, Kristen, I think.
no, what's the character's name?
Not
You know, Karen,
Karen Page.
Karen Page,
Oh,
the
okay.
lawyer, right?
Oh,
The blonde lawyer, right?
yes, yes.
No, the show I want to see is the romance between her and Punisher.
Sure.
That's the show I want to see, man. Like, because they're totally playing it up,
Yeah.
like
Well, there's a whole apparently there's a code word for man on female action called coffee. So anytime
what?
somebody says coffee, it's implied that they're going to have relations. So
Oh,
at one
funny.
point, the Punisher says, "Karen, do you want a cup of coffee?" When they're in the bunker, and she's like, "No, that's okay." And
That's
it's
right.
they know, like everybody knows
That's
within the
That's
universe.
right.
So
That's right. That was very funny.
then he
So I mean,
offers,
obviously they ended with a cliffhanger, kind of. They're setting up the next big,
right.
season of drama. But it is kind of amazing to me. Like the longer these characters stay alive, the worse the world becomes in some way. You know?
I mean, isn't that kind of what the Vision was talking about in Ultron, in Age of Ultron? How
Yeah.
like power brings upon competition, not competition. How did he say challenges?
Hmm.
Like power always brings upon the escalation, and the escalation is what brings upon destruction. So
Right.
it's like a commensurate with whatever the power is.
I remember hearing a theory that I don't totally buy because it just means that everything is balanced.
Hmm.
Is that if there was not a single superhero in the superhero world, there wouldn't be a supervillain. But because there's a superhero, there has to be a supervillain, and then that grows exponentially with heroes and villains and everything. And I had not pitched actually, but I've written an idea, and it's actually a Fantastic Four idea, where basically Reed Richards uh, has to stop, tries to stop the Marvel universe from happening to save the world.
Wow. Here's the thing, though. Here's why I disagree with that notion. And it's not because I'm, you know, high on superheroes or high on um, any kind of like power fantasy or anything like that. It's that I think that if the first person who ever gets superpowers in the world, whether it be the mental capacity to think like a computer, whether it be super speed, whether it be the ability to fly unassisted, the first person who gets these powers will eventually be a supervillain. So I think that superheroes are a response to that power fantasy of the supervillain. And it's basically somebody saying, no, we need to use this responsibly. And that's wherein the conflict lies. It's kind of like,
Well, wait, what you're saying though, what you're saying is the first superhero is probably a villain.
yes,
That's interesting because I think you're totally right about that. Because, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's something that you have to learn and
right,
earn.
right.
Because most people will do what Peter Parker did when he let the criminal go by, that went on to kill his Uncle Ben,
Hmm.
right? He didn't know that. He didn't know that he would have stopped the guy if he knew the future, right?
Right.
But he was being selfish. He was pissed off at the guy not giving him the money for the wrestling he did, blah, blah, blah. And then he learned a lesson like, well, you could have stopped somebody from running away with a bag of money or with a gun or something, but also he had not trained himself to think like a hero or be a hero
Right.
either.
The
So
the thing about it is that he stops that villain, he's still a jerk on TV, on the Ed Sullivan show or whatever it was in the
right.
Amazing Fantasy, or however you want to retroactively, fix it to where it's a modern day story beyond Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve. I don't know, something with Ryan Seacrest, America's Got Talent. Um, he would still be a jerk. And then at some point in my head, um, I would think that the power would corrupt him because he's so used to getting things because of that power. So in essence, you have to have some tragedy befall him so he learns the lesson of what power does. Without learning how power corrupts, you're always going to be corrupted by the power.
Mm-hmm.
I would say look no further than Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
We could see what happens when someone goes unchecked in their ability to, I don't want to say make laws, but shape laws to benefit them and the people that they surround themselves with. Um, he never got the lesson early on. He never read a comic book. Probably he never read Spider-Man. He never read Superman or something.
Right.
He just
Right.
didn't get. And I don't know. I'm not saying that anybody that reads comic books gets it and would never be put into that situation, because there's a whole group of comic book creators that we don't really talk about, but they exist, and they are on the opposite side of, let's say, religious lines, or the idea of having women make comics, or transsexual artists make
Yep.
comics, or any kind of minority speaking for, let's say, the white American superhero, meaning like Batman or Superman, even a Superman, whatever. So there's an entire section of comic book creators that, again, we don't talk about them very often, and I don't mean just you and I. We as a community have gotten past them a little bit, in the sense that the less we talk about them, the less power they have. So my point being, bringing them up, is that the ability to discern right from wrong and justice from injustice, we all learned at the same rate. through the same methods, whether it be cartoons, comic books, or whatever. And some folks either forgot that lesson, never learned it, or just never participated in the activities that we did, so that we could make, instead of a black and white decision, we could actually see a gray, and we can, discern what the right way of treating people is. There's a guy
And,
in El Salvador that does not belong there,
yeah.
and even the Supreme Court agrees with it. And the guy in charge down there is like, I don't care what the Supreme Court says. He put that Supreme Court together. He doesn't care what they say now. Like, this is power.
No. This is going to go down in flames. I mean, I think ultimately this is going to serve this administration falling apart, and not just from this example, from a whole bunch, because this is not sustainable. And I just can't see most people, even people who voted for this guy, to be like, wait, what's going on here?
Right.
How does this work? You just say whatever you want to, you just do what you want to do. That's not how it works.
Right.
You know?
There is a do you know who Hector Osterheld is?
No.
He was a I'm gonna get this wrong, but I want to say he was a Peruvian. No, that doesn't seem right. He's a cartoonist, a writer actually, and he worked with
Mm-hmm.
Alberto Breccia and a couple of other greats. And
Mm-hmm.
he spoke out against the government in South America that he was under, which was an oppressive government, and he got what is basically the best way to put it is he got disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
imprisoned, never seen again by his family. Now, this guy down in DC, he's talking about sending American citizens that don't
Mm-hmm.
agree with him to this El Salvadoran prison.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put it to you right now. If anybody wants to make me into a martyr, like, so be it. Just by me saying this stuff, that puts me on a watch list. So be it. But
Mm-hmm.
I can't, I can't sit idly by and not say anything, especially
Mm-hmm.
when I have the means to say something, and at least however many viewers we have, or many subscribers or whatever, that they get to see this and see that, at least at the very least, you don't have to think I'm heroic, or you don't have to think Dean is heroic or anything like that, but that we have principles, and that
Mm-hmm.
those principles were probably shaped by guys like Reed Richards and Clark Kent and the like.
Yeah, totally.
And that makes us that doesn't make us better than anybody, but it does make us different, and it does give us, I think, historically an edge over fascism, stuff like that. Um, I don't know. That's just my soapbox for the night.
And there's only so much we can do, honestly. But at the same time, I think part of the tactic is to overwhelm everybody with so much garbage happening every day that you don't even know how to respond anymore. So thankfully, we have people whose jobs are to actually respond, you know? So I'm just counting on that right now, because I don't know. I am reminded of something that you were going to do had we continued the new Brooklyn universe at Webtoon, and we can still do this. But you were going to write more Purple Heart,
Yep.
and one of the ideas we had was, I forget what neighborhood in Manhattan was going to like suddenly appear and move into. Was it Harlem?
So it was
Harlem was going to like suddenly attach itself to New
to New
Brooklyn,
Brooklyn.
right?
Yeah.
And you were going to create a new character named Sanctuary.
Mhm.
And I still think that you should write a a version of this story.
I
I
plan
think
on it.
it's necessary.
Yeah, it's the reason why we chose Harlem. I said to Dean is because if Brooklyn is the heart of New York, then Harlem is the soul of New York. So you got to have the heart of Brooklyn there. And the other part of it was that there was a uh, Donald Trump type of businessman who was, uh, I want to say, over mechanizing the entirety of New York City.
The infrastructure, right? I think. Oh, we lost Vito.
No, I'm here.
What's going on?
We got
Is that a is that a frog? Wait, is that a cat? I can't see what it is.
Shaking it all.
How big is it? It's a rabbit. Do you have a rabbit, or you got one outside?
I was outside and
Oh,
the cat come flying up on the porch. I'm
oh.
like, what is he chasing? And
Meatball approves.
I reached down and grabbed the cat, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's chasing a bunny. And I grabbed the bunny and threw it in a bucket. And I'm like, Sadie, what do I do with this bunny? I'm asking my 12-year-old what to do with a bunny. Yeah.
So let me give you guys a tip, okay? And I don't know how to fix this, but we once, when I was a kid, I think it was a bunny. I believe, I don't know if it was a squirrel. It was some kind of animal or a chipmunk or something. And we had taken care of it overnight and we pet it and everything. And you know how like when a dog sniffs you and once it remembers the smell, you're cool. Or the same thing with other animals. Once they lick you or something, it's like they put themselves on you so they remember kind of thing. What I was told was that if you pet like a bunny rabbit or an animal that lives outside, and then you release it back outside and it goes with family, sometimes the family rejects it because it's been contaminated by human beings.
Right.
So if there's a way to like wash yourself off the bunny rabbit or something, I don't even know.
I think it's old enough to like care for itself and stuff.
Oh, if it can take care of itself, then that's fine. Then it's fine. Yeah, we had a baby. That's right. It was a baby animal.
Yeah.
Okay, but otherwise, or name it and let it live with you.
No, we have enough. We have enough.
We have
animals.
cats out of.
We only have like.
We have enough cats.
We just had 3 kittens.
We
Yeah.
only have 7 cats.
What?
Like I had 3 kittens.
You had 3 kids?
We had to show you. Sorry to interrupt, but I had.
No, I love nature. Are you kidding me? And it's like it's not biting you or anything.
No, it's really cool.
Put it up in the camera.
You go see.
It
was breathing. It was like its heart is beating fast, but it was calmer. It's calmer now.
Yeah, then better.
Yeah, it's like okay, you guys are cool.
It knows. Oh,
there you go.
That's adorable. That's adorable.
Oh, right around Easter too.
Yeah.
How about that?
Oh wow, look at you.
Need to get
It's a sign, I think.
I don't think we can put a bunny in the tow cage. Can we put a bunny in a tow cage?
Why not? It's glass. You just have to cover the top.
Do you want me to bring the tow cage up? What do I?
I'm not sure.
What's a tow cage?
Toad. We used to have toads.
Toad.
Yeah, because that would come
Oh, how big is it? Is it big enough?
It's a 10-gallon, so like.
And it's got room for air and everything. And
yeah, I've got a screen top on it.
all right, or you let it back out into the
Dean,
you're very practical, Dean.
Do you not like? Well, you like cats. I know that.
I have 2. No, I love all animals. All animals. It looks like it's sleeping. Is it going to sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dean.
But I don't know if I eat it. Like I have to go get food and stuff.
I'm like, get a carrot. I don't know.
A carrot.
I'm like, they like carrots, right?
Oh my gosh.
They like food.
Oh my gosh, Allie. We gotta give it to Allie.
Yeah. Sadie's best friend's mom.
Takes care of rabbits.
She loves bunnies.
She loves rabbits and she knows how to take care of them.
Oh, there you go. Why not? I'm gonna go hang out with my cats now.
Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this thing.
You want to see it?
What a show this week.
I know, right?
Dean.
All right. So did you have a couple? I think I had another thing to talk about.
Well, let's talk about the thing I sent you about how young comic readers are kind of rejecting superheroes for manga, Japanese influence.
But there was a specific reason based on this one writer's take, right? Which was that American comics have, I won't say too much, but are reliant on action, right? And what was the secondary thing? There was another aspect, but that manga leans in more onto like soap opera, as it were.
Right.
Which
I mean, apparently this guy's never read a Chris Claremont X-Men story.
I mean, or a lot of comic, or Michael Bendis, like I'm trying to figure out, because I did respond to you and I'm looking for it real quick right now.
They said, the quote was, American comics are action heavy or humor based, with indie titles using techniques pioneered by the works of the likes of David Lynch.
Which didn't make any sense.
Right.
That did not make any sense. Like, what do you mean David Lynch? Like, that's cool. David Lynch is cool. So what are you talking about? Okay. Here it was. Yeah. Humor based or action heavy. And and that, you know, school life friendships and coming of age stories are probably more popular among young readers. But then I said that they grow up to want more mature themes, you
Right.
know?
And
So then they kind of they
kiss my
return.
ass, everybody. I did a high school coming of age story and nobody wanted it.
Dude, you know what that is half the time? That's marketing. That
Oh,
has nothing, that almost,
sure.
it's so weird the amount of work out there that people produce that just didn't get a fair shake, let's
Right.
call it, you
Right.
know? And when people stumble upon it, how many times have you stumbled upon something you didn't really know about? You indulged it and you went, this is really, why don't more people know about it? It's just
The
the luck of the draw sometimes, or because they had no marketing, you know, they didn't play the
most
game.
the most recent example of that was, I want to say, it was, and this probably isn't the most recent example, but it's the one that's popping in my head, was Satellite Sam by Howard
That you
Chaykin.
read. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
by Howard Chaykin and Matt Fraction, which I follow both. Not, I don't mean socially, but I follow both's career and their work and stuff. And I've always loved Howard's artwork, and Matt. His writing has always been refreshing to me. Like, it's always been kind of on the cusp of being so traditional, Stanley Marvel-ish, but with a different, like Sex Criminals alone, you could say kind of blows everything out of the water that you would say about Matt's writing being typical. But
Right.
with Satellite Sam, it was very much, I love Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Like, I absolutely adore their one-shot prestige novels. Um, so when I discovered Satellite Sam, it was around the time that I was reading The Fade Out, which is one of my favorite Brubaker and Phillips collaborations.
That's the one I haven't read.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and it's about like 1950s, late 40s Hollywood. You
Well,
know,
he called me up. Called me
oh, really?
up because he was about to write that and he wanted to talk to my dad.
Makes sense.
And I don't know if he ever did. I should ask my dad.
Or
Uh,
ask Ed.
I forgot to follow through. So anyway, yeah, I gave my dad's number and I told my dad, and I think he might have called him up because he was doing 1950s actors and
Right,
that kind of stuff.
right.
Right.
And it's absolutely like, I love James Elroy books, which take place in the late 40s, early 50s, the LA trilogy, uh, LA Confidential, uh, Brown's Requiem, the Black Dahlia, like all these different LA based, or even around Hollywood and stuff. So that's my bailiwick, like that's exactly
Right.
my boulevard. So
Right.
somehow or other, I missed Satellite Sam being out there, even though both are done by Image. And just on a whim, I picked up, like, I think the first three issues just to check it out, because I always give comics, which, and they cost so much sometimes, and you always want to give a comic a chance, but like, if it gets to issue 4 and you haven't gotten to where you want to be in the story, what's the point? So I got the first three, loved it, and I couldn't find 4. I was like, all right, give me trades. I'll take all the trades you have, like,
Mhm.
and apps. And it was way after the book was done, so I was lucky
Mhm.
enough that I could, get them all.
I have to read
And
that one.
again,
That's I have not read it, and I feel ashamed because I read everything Chaikin does, and that's the one that I have the collection. I think they did do an omnibus type thing,
I think so.
and I've been meaning to crack it. But you know what? I've been meaning to crack a lot of things these days, and it's kind of crazy how much stuff I have that I want to read that I haven't read, and including movies and everything else.
Yeah, and
It's
you
too
and you
much.
went to a couple of shows, like, week after week, so I'm sure you've picked up even more stuff.
I picked up more stuff, and that's actually was going to be my question to you in a second, unless you're good.
No, no, I'm,
Um,
I'm just riffing on this one. Just that the um, the writer's point of view is probably skewed somewhat. I don't know. I don't know who the guy is. It's I just happened to see this Substack article on my feed, and I think that he's not really taking into consideration an adventurous spirit of somebody walking to a comic store for the first time, seeing something that just like catches their eye, and just says, you know what, I want to try this.
mhm.
Maybe it's manga, maybe it's not. Maybe it's I was this past Saturday was record store day. Like, it's an annual
Hmm.
kind of holiday. I call it a holiday, but it's like a marketing thing to sell vinyl. And it's become mine and Sadie's, my daughter, who you just saw with a rabbit. It's our holiday together. So we go buy records at this place called the Government Center, which is in downtown Pittsburgh. Fantastic place. If you're in Pittsburgh, go check them out. And afterwards, I was like, all right, we're going to the comic store. So we went to Phantom of the Attic, which is not my local comic store. I usually go to New Dimension Comics. But the thing I like about going to Phantom is that they carry more Fantagraphics, more
Mm.
drawn and quarterly, more zines, more self-published things. So I always find something there that I haven't seen before. And funny enough, I run into Jim Rugg.
Oh, wow, that's great.
And I
That's
said hello,
awesome.
and I was talking to, and I was saying that you and I were talking about him, and um, like and he's like the typical Jim. Oh, okay, hi, thanks, and just walks away. Um, but
Mild-mannered
again,
Jim Rugg.
I was I was vacillating between. There was a Charles Burns book that I'd never seen. Um, there was a Jimmy Corrigan book that I wanted to reread. I wanted to pick up the first uh, volume of Red Room by Ed Piskor, and I ended up getting Life Drawing by Jaime Hernandez
I got that recently too. I
because
haven't read
I
it.
had missed all those issues, and I have like one or two sparing ones.
Right.
Like, I want to actually read the story, so I bought that, and I haven't started it yet, but like it's right there.
Yeah. I have a bunch of the graphic novels I've been meaning to crack. I just started reading Rick Parker's about being in the army. I
Hmm.
forget what it's called right now. But um, uh, I think you can skip Red Room,
Hmm.
and I love Ed Piskor, obviously. But I read the first issue, and I did not need to read anymore because it's disgusting. It's a
It's
disgusting.
as I was flipping through them, I was trying to like I couldn't remember which was the first collection. So I was looking at them and I was flipping through all of them. And, you know, I think we've lauded and given Ed flowers, especially on this show.
Absolutely.
But the thing I think that doesn't get said enough is, God damn it, he can knew how to design a page. I mean,
Sure.
the pages aren't your typical panel designs either.
Right.
they're very well thought out and well, assembled, I guess is the
Well, I
best.
think it comes from the Evan Dorkin school of packing a lot in,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely. That's a good
Um,
call.
and I sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. Again, I'm not here to bash Ed Piskor because I love the guy and I like a lot of his comics. I felt like as uh, such a big undertaking was the Hip Hop Family Tree project. It also I had no emotional connection as I read some of it. It felt like a big long Wikipedia entry that was illustrated. Like it was just
Yeah, that's pretty
facts,
accurate from what I could tell.
facts. And he was knitting and making certain connections, but there wasn't that like what he was kind of missing for me was like maybe a story about a little kid learning hip hop and growing up with hip hop, or maybe Ed should have put himself in there, maybe, or I don't think he did. And I drew two pinups for that series,
Right. Right.
but Red Room is I feel like I think he and Jim Rugg, but especially Ed, was a super fan of David Quinn and
What is that?
Tim
Foul?
Vigil's Faust,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like, and it's not a leap to say that Red Room was probably him doing his own kind of Faust, with the the dark web and the internet and actually it's very Black Mirror in some ways. There was a mirror episode of Black Mirror in season 7, episode 1 that deals with dark web type stuff.
Hmm.
That's very very Red Room, very and so again, I watch all kinds of. I was watching Smile #2, the horror movie Smile #2,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
oh my God, it's brutal to watch. It's there's horror and then there's torture porn, and that movie was definitely torture porn from what I
Right.
was watching. And so I don't know if listen, I think my favorite horror film is Halloween with Michael Myers, and I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre because you don't see all the stuff that you think you saw.
Mhm.
And then there's John Carpenter's The Thing, those are great horror films. And I loved recently Barbarian.
Yeah.
But when you really get into the nitty-gritty of just people peeling their faces off and whatever the hell's going on, it's too much. It's a little much, like forget leaving anything to the imagination. I just want to protect my soul
Do
by
you
watching this.
do you think it's as somebody who's made a couple of short films at the very least, do you think it's a matter of filmmakers trying to outdo the last thing? Like I've never seen the Saw movies, but
Right. Oh, I've seen them all.
I
I've seen
remember
them all.
like Saw came out and then Hostel came out, and it seemed like there was like this new version of, I wouldn't call it horror movie because it's more like a shock film, like it's more
Sure.
like a filmed snuff film that's legal to watch.
Sure. So
Um,
Saw still leans in on traditional horror,
mhm.
and it gets pretty quickly throughout the sequels into repugnant. Like, why am I watching? I'm just watching people scream and have horrific things done to them to the point where the story is secondary.
Yeah.
And horror to me, why it's hard sometimes to write a good horror or a new horror idea is because really just turn on the news. There's your horror movie, okay,
Yeah.
half the time. But when you try to come up with a conceit, it's like why and what is it? What could it be? I mean, I'm writing right now something where I'm trying to play with the zombie AI
Mhm.
conceits,
Yeah, I
and
remember
I'm trying to
seeing.
do a mashup and play with something. So I'm still working it out, and then I'll push it to the side, abandon it for a little while, and then something will pop up. I'm like, wait a second. So I'm goofing around, but I am thinking about it, and yet I also realize no matter what I come up with in terms of the genres or trying to make a hybrid of genres, at the end of the day, it has to be a story about people,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
or else nobody cares. And what happens that a lot of these horror films, you don't care about the protagonist, the antagonist. You almost care. You almost want, again, what I was saying earlier about Daredevil Born Again is like maybe everyone should just kill each other.
You want the monster to win sometimes. Yeah, the closest I've ever come to a horror story was, if you remember, myself and Michelle Fife doing I'm Madly in Love for chemistry, not chemistry set. It was for a different anthology that ended up being the chemistry set anthology. And it was about a guy who loved his girlfriend so much that anytime he flirted or felt like he was being flirted with, or like he looked at someone, as Dean said, he was going to die on his bike while looking at someone's ass.
Yeah.
But this guy, what he would do is he would, masochistically hurt himself to the point where he's in the hospital, and at the end he gets hit by a bus. So
Right.
it's a horror story. It's also a
Yes.
romance story, like
And it's kind of like a Twilight Zone in that way, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I love. I love a good Twilight Zone, and in
So
fact, have you watched Black Mirror? Any of them?
I watched, I want to say the first two episodes of season one, and I was it didn't get me. And like I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, you got to stick with it," and like stick with it till the thing with the pig.
That the pig, yeah, the politician.
Yeah,
But I mean, but some are more stand out than others. That's
sure,
the
sure.
risk and gamble, just like Twilight Zone. So
Right.
they're all worth watching. Some you like better than others,
Yeah,
and
I'll
what it
definitely.
also does, it makes it what is fun is for the writer. For a
I bet.
writer to watch these stories, it's a
Mhm.
lot of fun because you think about, oh, that's clever, or how would you have done that idea, and it just activates that, thought. What's
This
that
is
called?
Reflux issue 3. This was the book that we had done, me and Fife.
Who else is in that? Anybody notable?
I don't know. Let's see. Matt Lutz,
Matt, I know Matt.
Jacob Chabot,
Uh-huh. Yeah, no.
Matt Rossetti, who's a good friend of mine, Kirk Christensen, and Chris Chua, who are friends of ours.
So did this come out?
Abby Benson's in it.
Abby Denson. Oh, I saw her at IC3.
Yeah, this is from 2004.
And that did how many issues did that go? Is it an anthology?
It was like a 3-volume anthology, I believe. And
Oh,
that was
okay.
the last one.
All right, cool.
Everyone
All right,
ended up
so
getting editorial jobs at Marvel.
oh, how about that? How
Not
about
me.
that? Look at that. An example of my work. Hire me. Um, so the question I was going to ask you, because I was thinking about it, is I've recently done three three alternative Comic Cons, let's call them, right?
Mhm.
IC3, the Independent Creators Comic Con in Connecticut. Then I did Ithacon in Ithaca, that was held at a Ithaca College, and most recently Kingston Independent Comics Expo. And the first one, IC3, and the Kingston one, the third one, what it reminded me of was early SPX. Now I don't know if you ever went to SPX.
Yeah, I never did. No,
You never went to SPX.
no, I had never. Funny enough, like the reason why I never went was mostly because at the times when I was coming up, I guess I had never done anything I thought that would be SPX approved or
Mm,
for that market. Um, but I've since done a bunch.
yeah.
It's I've never gone back. I've never gone to there to or because mostly there was a year where SPX was happening at the same time as Baltimore, and like they were like right across
Mm-hmm.
the water from each other. So yeah, I should go. I just never put it together.
Well, the reason I bring up SPX and these shows is because there was something about these shows that reminded me not only of the spirit of early independent Comic Cons, where there were no Funkos. Of course, there was no mainstream kind of nothing against mainstream, but it really was a focus on, let's call them homemade comics and a handful of independent publishers, right? Uh, and what also the spirit it caught was like it would take place, everyone stayed at the same hotel that the show was at or nearby or whatever. And then you would do the show and then everyone would hang out, maybe get some grub and then hang out and with each other and drink and draw and all this stuff and share stories. And when I do San Diego or New York Comic Con, it's like you do a whole day in Artist Alley or you walk around and then maybe you get dinner with maybe three people where you stand on line for an hour
Hmm.
and then there might be a party or two, but you're so exhausted,
Yeah,
or you don't know the party, or there was 20 parties
right.
and you can't seem to do any of it. And so there's something about the containment of these small shows, so much so that the Kingston one, I believe, it was in the middle of a church, so at a church, but in the middle where it was like a room, and I think there were 45 tables,
Wow.
and I did pretty well because I think what happens if people show up, and Jim Starlin showed up and Walt and Weezy Simonson showed up because they lived nearby and all that. So they were checking it out, and there's all these indie folks. And what you do is I think you shop, you look around at all the tables, and then if you want to spend money, you go back to all the tables. And
Hmm.
because there isn't 300 or 1,000 tables, and you're able to kind of do the show, you did well as a person behind a table selling your wares. So my
Right.
question to you, and it's making me think, and I don't have the answer necessarily, but my question to you is, if you could create your own little Comic Con, what would that be?
When I was there was a year where I'd sent in my application to New York Comic Con and it got rejected. And I have since not been to a Reed Pop show out of protest. And I can get into it, but that's not the answer to the question. So I'm not gonna, we'll save it for another time. But in response, I was going to have what I called at the time SadieCon. And it was going to be, this is prior, funny enough, this was way before she had done a comic, but it was going to be Sadie and a bunch of kids. And the kids set up their tables and the kids sell like art or comics or whatever. And it's adults walking through. Like that was going to be my contribution to the future of comics, I guess.
I
Because I
love
wanted,
that.
like at one point you're like, oh, it's cool to teach kids business, and it's cool to, like teach them that art has value, and it's cool to have them meet peers, like kids their age that are interested in the same stuff that they might not go to school with, but
Right.
that they can, bounce ideas off of and stuff like that. Um, I think there's a value to it. I would still do it at some point, but Sadie's much older now.
But I do think there is something to, if it's smaller, you may not drive 3 hours to it, but the
Right.
locals on a Saturday with nothing to do might swing by and then they get caught up in it and like decide, oh, you know what? It's like vinyl records, like comic
Mhm.
books. Like, oh, I remember comic books. Wait, there's a comic
Yeah.
book? You make a comic book kind of thing? Jen, my girlfriend, has a studio in Dumbo, and this it's on the street that has a million tourists taking selfies or pictures of them by the Manhattan Bridge.
Right.
It is the alley, the street that everyone goes to, and Jen has to navigate all these people. They just get into her studio, right? And I keep saying to her, "You have made Dumbo coffee mugs. You have Brooklyn Bridge coasters. You have all kinds of stuff. I know you're making big paintings and trying to sell big paintings, but you've actually, at my behest, have created some quote merch that if you wanted to at your lunch break, just go downstairs and there are tables and chairs for people to sit at,
Mhm.
and just put up a bunch of mugs, some little bit of merch with a price list. You would get lunch, dinner, and maybe tomorrow's breakfast too.
Yeah.
Like
You know what?
in an hour.
To her, like maybe to her detriment, but I think it's one of the things that I find so charming about her is that she doesn't think in terms of marketing or
At all.
self-marketing. She's very pure that way. And I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
saying that she's ignorant or naive or anything like that. It's just that she's got a very pure heart, and I enjoy that about her. That's one of the things
Oh,
that,
thanks. Yeah,
and
me too. Me too. I mean,
and
and
she's not
sometimes it's
taking.
frustrating
Oh,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you and I are trying to figure out how to sell our measly comics. And and then I do remind myself, like, I'm always trying to get somebody to give me $5 to $15, maybe 25 once in a
Just to
while,
get lunch.
right? And right,
Yeah.
and at least she's trying to make 800 to 2,000 or whatever the hell the size of the painting is, like, and then that structure alone is so different from what we're trying to do. So now I got to figure out what's my $1,000 comic book.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think that like that maybe there's an interesting I think the smaller the comics event, uh, at a doable venue, that people will go to, might be a way forward.
The thing is, you have to strike the balance between a signing and
Hmm.
and I wouldn't say like a New York Comic Con, but um, maybe an Ithacon, something in between the two.
With workshops and a couple of panels, and maybe you get a name or two that draw people, and maybe they don't even have a table. They do a signing for an hour or two, or they give it to whatever. I don't know. I mean, these things, I think a lot of people are trying to figure this out, which is why we have so many of these cons happening. Just look at Heidi McDonald's The Comics Beat. If you get the newsletter every day,
Bottom
at
of
the
the
bottom of the newsletter, there's a ton of stuff happening every month with links.
month. There's sometimes every week.
Yeah.
Remember, um, there was a point like in the recent history, I would say up until about maybe 3 to 4 years ago, that from I would say typical cons start in like February, March, and like it was every week until November. Like it was the craziest looking schedule. Like there was a year where I did Long Beach Comic Con. Then so I went out to California, spent a week in California. Set the week after I got back in time to go to New York Comic Con, and then there was another con that I went. I think Baltimore right after.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really weird schedule. I might have the events mixed, but it was
Right.
one after the other.
Right.
It was hard. I don't know how. There's guys like Mike McCone who really good friend, really fantastic artist, and I remember there was a point where he goes, I don't have home. I live in hotels. I go to conventions. I was like,
Right.
what are you talking about? Like,
Right.
how do you like? I can't imagine living like that. That's not the case now, but it was the
Right.
case maybe about 5 years ago.
Oh, I mean, I just experienced it for about a month. I did 3 cons where I was sleeping either at hotels or crashing someone's house or, whatever. I mean, I just with Nick Bertozzi and Josh Schufeld, Nick had a hookup at a compound in near Kingston, and thank God we didn't have to pay for that,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
and we left them some comic books and a thank you. But yeah, I can't live that lifestyle either, so
My whole thing when I do a convention, my whole mindset is, can we make enough money today to pay for dinner tonight? Because you
Mm,
might be able to get the show might give you snacks, and you might be able to get through the day. But
right.
I'm hanging with my boys tonight. I gotta get a drink.
Yep.
Like let's sell something.
Yep, yep, absolutely. I mean, and it's almost that's the joke behind it. It's like make enough money to eventually hopefully pay for if you did a hotel and the travel and the table, but also dinner that night or whatever the hell.
Right.
And then I'm like, but what about tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What about
When we got to
tomorrow?
do it, that's the whole artist mindset, isn't it? Like we're totally in the now and the today of it, and
Yep.
it's like, all right, we got through today. Now we got to do the same thing tomorrow.
Oh my God. Well,
So
I don't know if we want to wrap this up. I had another thing that might be another topic.
I
So if
want to
you're
show, I want to attempt to show you something else. Again, mentioned at the top of the show, Marty Keene was our guest. I want to say 4, maybe 5 episodes back. Go back and listen to that show. Go back and watch the show. It's a fantastic show. He's an amazing, amazing creator. I've learned so much from him just in that show, and then just seeing his, being aware of him now and watching him promote and work and put his stuff on Facebook, and just an incredible person. If you're into making comics and you're into like self-publishing, please watch that show. Please reach out to Marty. I'm sure he's more than happy to give you advice. But so last week we were talking about Oathbound for the second time with Ray Anthony Height, and Dean had said, you know, I don't know if he actually said it on the show or not, but he said, like whenever we talk about like Oathbound, I keep thinking you're going to talk about like your like you doing a bootleg version of something. So, with that in mind, I'm going to show you the opening images, the character designs for my bootleg Nightwing story that's going to be called Raptorix. So, if you'll allow me to share my screen again, this will, let's do it like this. So, can you see the screen, Dean?
I see. Oh, now I can. Yes. It's small. I don't know if you can make it bigger, but
Let's see if I can zoom in. Don't think I can, but I can do this. This is Cheshire. He is a version of the Joker. These all were all done by Matt Major, by the way. Um,
awesome looking.
he is basically my version of the Joker. He is a very theatrical guy. He does crimes based on plays, which is very hard to explain to to anybody, but I'm going to do my best. For example, he will stage a crime around My American Cousin. Do you know what the significance of My American Cousin is, Dean?
No. Oh wait, yes, that's the play that Abraham Lincoln was watching when he got
Right,
killed.
right.
Got it.
And excuse me, it's Our American Cousin, not
Okay,
mine.
right, right.
And so the hero of the piece, named Chiroptera, who I'll show you here in a second, has to determine, well, what does that mean? Oh, he's probably targeting a political figure. So that's what I mean by he stages crimes around plays.
Right, right, right.
This now is going to be Raptorix. Let's zoom in on him a little bit. Raptorix is our Nightwing pastiche. Now, again, I don't know that there are rules to doing bootlegs. I think I even asked you. I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And you were like, I don't know, just do it. So I know that there was a point where I could have just said, all right, this is Nightwing, and I can just either give this away or sell it or whatever. But I thought it would be a stronger story if I just created my own characters that were basically these characters. So Raptorix is going to be the Nightwing of the story.
So basically the bootleg would have been or is Joker, Nightwing, Batman that we
Right.
know of, right? So
Right.
you had to create 3 new characters for the bootleg because I think a lot of people that's what they do. They do like they're close. What you're bootlegging. You know what I'm saying? You know
Right.
what you're doing a satire or a parody or an homage to. Like, and the only thing it's funny. The only thing is because you can't help yourself but have a mainstream sensibility. And
Yeah.
Matt as well. I think that's very mainstream looking as alternative it is. But it's funny because the one thing I think about that if I were to do a bootleg is to like use my left drawing hand, my left hand, which I don't draw with, or
Uh,
break my right hand and like just draw something really grungy and like wrong and like and that's what's so funny is like that's what I was thinking and that's what I think of when I think of bootleg. It's just to do something that's really raw looking or something,
so
you know?
here's funny you should mention that. When we were discussing this, Matt and I, we were like, so do we do it like clean? Do we do it raw? Like what are
Hmm.
the rules here? And what I said was, I think instead of doing like a super indie underground style, I want to go with a more uh what did I say? Jim Aparo style. Like
Okay,
something
that's
that's
cool.
not modern per se,
Right,
something that's kind of familiar but kind of outdated in a
right.
sense. Not
Oh,
that
that's fair. That's fair. To outdated is a good way of putting it. Although looking at this Batman character,
Mhm.
look at the coloring on his top of his cape and
Oh
cowl.
yeah, yeah.
It's so modern. It's beautiful. Like I don't even know how he did that.
Yeah, I don't think Matt knows how to do anything like uh cheap. You know what I mean? Like I
It's
don't think
unbelievable. Like, and to me, so there's a slickness and there's a professionalism and a mainstream kind of quality
Mhm.
to it that I would almost like to see what would the layout version look like? Like the less slick. I mean, that's beautiful. Like that should be now a toy and a movie and a comic book and everything else.
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I like so the story I have the story. It's going to be 12 pages. Should I don't want to say should I care about it. Um we I think what I have the first 20, it's 12 pages. I could add 12 pages to the beginning of it to make a full comic. Uh,
Right.
I don't necessarily have to, but again, like should it warrant the story, warrant it, I could easily put that in. But the idea is 12 pages for Baltimore and just putting them out
Well,
there.
I mean, start there because you can maybe that's attainable, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard to do free comic, to create something for free. Then you got to print it. And it's
Right.
attainable. My only thing would be, um, and I know the idea because we've discussed it, is to really, as best, push your own envelope. To take these characters that you love so much because it comes from that,
Mhm.
and do what a Marvel or DC wouldn't do,
Right.
respectfully, and just have fun with it. And so make it kind of unexpected. Like on the one hand, you're like, oh, I've seen a comic book that looks like this. But when you're reading it, you're like, wait, they don't do this in those comic books,
Right,
you
right.
know?
The opening page alone, like, and you know what the opening page is.
Yeah,
Opening page alone, I think, will set a tone that no one's expecting.
right,
And like guys like Bob Harrison, who like me is a Nightwing fan,
right,
he knows Bob knows of my love of Nightwing and put me on a Nightwing panel last year in Baltimore because of that. Like, not
right, right.
never worked on Nightwing. I have no reason to be on that panel
Ah,
except for my love of Nightwing. So,
right,
so
right.
Bob, knows, and I think Bob, this is going to, hit him right in the feels, so to speak, and like something that he'll enjoy and pick up himself, and kind of take me to task. I think, for what I'm doing.
Maybe. And what's interesting about bootlegs is like if you know what it's satire, what it's based on,
Mhm.
it's almost like you don't need to do any of that heavy lifting.
Right.
You can get right into the crux of the twist that you're throwing into it.
What's funny is like Matt and I have, as this story has come out of me, a couple of other ideas have come out of me, and not necessarily bootlegs, but pastiches, let's call them. And
Right.
I've developed a couple more. Today, even I came up with a pastiche for Doctor Doom, and and then like I go, okay, well, how does that fit in the world of Stray? or how does that fit in the world of Underboss, or stuff like that. So I'm realizing, and I said it to Matt last night. I was like, I didn't realize I was doing bootlegs all this time with Stray. You know what I mean? Like I know that like Stray, I don't see Stray as a bootleg Nightwing, whereas
Right.
Raptorix is a very direct bootleg of Nightwing.
It's
But
intentional. Yeah, it's
yeah, but
intentional.
like if you read the first trade paperback of Stray, you do see a bootleg Justice League. You
Right.
see, you see a lot of those little instances of pastiche and paragons and analogs and stuff like that. And I never really, I mean, I knew that I was doing that intentionally because I figured what's a good way to sell a comic that to a superhero comic to an audience that's used to superheroes, speaking the language they know,
Right.
be
Right.
familiar to with them, and join in together. So you
Right.
fill in all the backstory in your head, and you're free to just read.
Right.
So, but now what I'm finding is because Stray is such a departure from the idea of a bootleg or a pastiche at this point, I can throw in all these other analogs for different characters and bounce it off of him. You know,
Right.
the the
Right.
the idea of the Doctor Doom guy that I came up with is when you take a superhero that's a street level Daredevil type, Nightwing type, who's used to solving problems with his fist, how does he handle diplomacy?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you have this monarch of another country and you have Stray. They would never come across each other normally.
Right. Right.
So what is it that brings them together and how do they bounce off of each other? So
Or because you've already been thinking about this, what's cool about your bootleg project is that maybe the next 12 pages is Batman versus Doctor Doom.
yeah, it's
What
very
does that look like?
it's really crazy how open it is. Um, the other the getting to the other part of it now, after revealing these character designs, I actually came up with a bootleg Fantastic Four for you.
Oh boy.
And
Oh boy.
it's very, I forget what I called them, but it's instead of them going to space, they're archaeologists. So they go into the earth.
Ah, of course.
And instead of the Reed character being the leader, it's the Ben character that's the leader.
Ah,
And
interesting.
and one of these days I'll write it up for you and I'll send it to you. So
Didn't you, me, and Adam McGovern start to come up with an idea? It was going to be Purple Heart, Red Hook, and Aquaria, and it had
right.
something to do with going underground or discovering something about New Brooklyn. And wait,
Here's
what?
one of my favorite storylines you've ever pitched to me, or because you pitched it to me. Like I don't know where Adam was in the process, but you're like, what can you do with this idea, basically? And you had this idea, and then I go, okay, this is what Purple Heart would do, and then Adam came up with what he would do with Aquaria, and the
Right.
idea was that you find out that the Earth is actually flat, and that's where you
Yes,
started.
that's
And
right.
you're like, so what happens? Where does he go when he gets to the edge? And I think there was a waterfall at the edge of the earth that led to another earth. And like it was absolutely, I wish you could find it, like wrote it down because
I think I have it somewhere because we write back and forth.
incredible. It was so because we talked about it on the phone, and I don't know if you actually ever wrote it down, but like you might have written it down with Adam at some point. But it's such a fun, like this was going to be, I think, another New Brooklyn,
Yeah, it would be like at
like
one
another
point we talked
season.
about doing not a Marvel 2-in-1, but like a Marvel 3-in-1, right?
Right, right,
Or the comics they did, Strange Tales and all those books where it's
right.
two character stories per issue. But I was like, no, this will be three.
Mhm.
And but ultimately it would culminate as, oh, you're actually reading one big story because they're all coming at it from three different
Right.
ways.
I remember one of the ideas for Purple Heart. I don't remember all of my ideas for Purple Heart in that context, but one of them was when he gets to the other Earth, he comes across another Purple Heart that's actually all black instead,
Mm,
or like it was like a negative version
mm,
of him or something like
mm-hmm,
that,
mm-hmm.
and like he might have like not lived. His mission was instead of to mend hearts, it was to break hearts.
Right, 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 right,
Like and we
right.
were just being like super like simple with the concepts, but
Yeah.
the executions would be more intricate and more elaborate.
Right. No, that was a lot of fun. I
Good
mean,
idea. That
and
idea.
I think Adam had come up with an idea that actually Brooklyn had like some spaceship underneath it,
Yes.
like like an exoskeleton or something, and it actually Brooklyn lifts up into the sky at one point. And I don't know if it blasted off and it was whatever, and maybe the
Yeah.
Purple Heart creates like a shell, a bubble, or I
Yeah, I
don't know,
can't
man.
remember. So it was, but it was. I just remember sitting on my porch here, and as we were talking about it, and like I was like, "Hey, what if we did?" And then you were like, "Hey, what?" This is how the thing about the Oathbound idea and the thing about this flat Earth idea is that when you get the right people in the right room at the right time, and you're starting to go back and forth about an inkling of an idea, you end up with a Bible sort of options of alternates and just opportunities. And I think that's it's important like to work with people, I think, in comics, not just on your own, because without, even if you're not working with them on something, without the input, comics being a team sport, it's hard to do by everything by yourself. And I've seen you do it, Dean,
No, I agree. I mean, I agree. And actually, now that I think about it, one of the greatest gifts that Marvel gave its fans and emerging creators was the What If comic series.
Mhm.
If you think about it, because it allowed you to think, oh, there's continuity, but then there's also let's play with these ideas or some of our favorite stories and put a twist on them, and it allowed you, the fan, the reader, to start to think in those terms as well, and then you would poach some of those ideas and then turn that Nightwing into a Stray, you
Right.
know, and then back into a bootleg Nightwing, kind of a
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah,
And it all boomerangs, and it's kind of crazy.
I think you'd have to mention Elseworlds from DC as well, but it came
Yep.
much later. And I think Elseworlds took itself a little too seriously sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah.
whereas What If was always fun. Like
Oh, I
I
mean,
just
listen, when I did my Conan story a few years ago, which hopefully will come out soon at some point, I based my idea on a what if cover,
hmm.
which is a guy is pointing a gun at Conan the Barbarian in an alley, right?
Is that the
And
What
I
If
thought,
Conan was in the 70s or something like that?
yeah, he like gets somehow transported to, the Marvel universe, right? And then he's
Hmm.
in an alley with the guy with a gun, and there are no guns in Samaria or whatever, but the
Hmm.
Hyberian age or whatever it's called, and the hyperbolic age.
Uh,
um, but I thought, no, I'm going to do a story where there's a gun,
mhm.
and I've done that, and hopefully hopefully it will be published in a Conan comic at some point soon. So
Great. Yeah, I'm gonna put it together. I I have this thing sometimes for people that I enjoy or I care about or I just like their company or whatever. Sometimes I just get inspired to like give them something, and like I don't have anything to give. I can't give art, so I give like a story, you know. Uh, good example. Just now talking about the bootleg Fantastic Four for you. Um, at some point, I do want to write this tremendous like graphic novel or 48 pager or whatever it is, that is basically what if Dean and Vito did Southern Bastards in New York,
oh yeah.
like, and I think I called it Northeast Corridor,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's the Amtrak whenever it comes into Penn Station, they call it the Northeast Corridor, so it's
right.
basically New York. um, Todd Nauck, who I met many years ago at a Wizard World LA. We just got along so well, and like we used to call each other a lot before he got busy with a lot of different stuff. This is when he was still at Image, I think, and he did a book called Wild Guard, and just I was like, it's not, I'm writing this just as a fan of your work and as something that if you ever want to do something with, just go ahead and do it. Like you don't have to give me anything, like you gave me everything already. So I wrote
uh
this story of his character. So weird. I think about it now and I'm like, this is maybe where Stray probably had like the first inklings of coming from. Because he had a character called Devil Dog, I believe, in his universe, Wild Guard universe. or some kind of dog character, and I wrote a short. I want to say like 4 to 6 pages, maybe even 8 page backup story of this character and what his origin could be. And like it's so goofy where like there's even a radioactive dog that bites him. Like, but like it's nothing that I would do in Stray, but at the same time, it's like maybe this was like the first instance of me thinking of a dog themed character.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course. One thing begets the other, you know?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's how it works. So all right. Well, I'm good. You good?
I'm fresh out. I got a little bit of coffee left, but you know, I'm fresh out of oh, I don't want to curse in front of my kids.
What's the bubblegum thing from the John
From They
Carpenter?
Live?
They Live.
I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
I'm all out of bubblegum.
I'm all out of bubblegum, everybody. All right. Yay, yay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Love you. We'll see you next week.
Love you too.